Tom Ferrin has to really feel the love in this room tonight. Thank you very much. Now on to our first substantive question. When we asked for questions for the Tea Party members, we got more than a few that asked about the 10th Amendment, which has been invoked recently on the state level in an attempt to curb the power of the U.S. Congress over the states. But I'm not going to ask about that, mostly because it's mostly a movement on the state level. What I want to know is, what is Congress going to do to limit itself? So my question is, would you consider opposing a bill for no other reason than because it grants powers to the government that are not specifically authorized in the Constitution? And can you give an example of legislation, either something that's been passed or something that has been proposed, that would meet this description and would be a target for being rejected on those grounds? Now, I also want to say we're going to sort of rotate around here. So we started with Ken Boyd last time. We'll start with Jim McKelvey this time, and we'll go around that. So Jim.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat the question because I was the latter part of the question.
Oh, got a little noise on the mic? Okay. So the question is, would you consider opposing a bill for no other reason than because it grants powers to the government that are not specifically authorized in the Constitution?
I absolutely would.
And can you give an example of legislation, either something that's been passed or something that's been proposed, that meets this description? You get 90 seconds.
I can't propose any legislation that's been proposed or has been. Honestly, don't have any knowledge of that. Something I'll have to look into, but I would absolutely oppose anything that's going to go against our Constitution, anything within the 10th Amendment or any other part of that Constitution.
Michael.
Obviously, yes. What we have to remember about the 10th Amendment is the 10th Amendment is the last thing our founding fathers said to us before they signed off and say. I used to have a coach in football who used to come over and he says, all right, we're going to put you in here, McPadden. He'd put his arm around me and he'd look at me and say, do me proud, son. And he'd send me out in the field, and then sometimes I would and sometimes I wouldn't. But what he meant by that was go out there and do your very best. This is the last thing I have to say to you before you play. The 10th Amendment is the same thing. The 10th Amendment is giving us an absolute structure of what the Constitution was meant to be in case you didn't get it the first time. What it means is, if it's not specifically written in the Constitution, you may not do it, federal government. That's it. It says you can do anything you want, states and the people, unless the Constitution specifically prohibits you from doing it. That it's only for the states, and to the people, you are free to do anything that you want. There are no restrictions upon you in the Constitution. That's the 10th Amendment in a nutshell. So yes, if it goes against the Constitution, if it's not one of the enumerated powers of the Constitution, indeed, I would definitely vote against it.
Example.
Healthcare.
You know, I wasn't actually sure I understood that question until Mike's last answer, because the answer seemed so obvious to me. First of all, most people aren't even aware of the 10th Amendment, what it is and that's there. To most people, the 10th Amendment is a fifth of vodka served twice. They have no idea what it is. If you want a list of laws proposed that would go against the states should invoke the 10th Amendment on, and by the way, Utah is proposing an amendment that is, to me, ideal, or proposing legislation. Just go down, like Mike said, go down the Obama legislative proposal, cap and trade, health care, their banking regulation. They're continuing their socialistic drive to take over not only health care, that of course is the biggest. They're not done with that. The auto industry, the banking industry, industrial output. Yeah, go down the entire legislation of the Obama administration, and quite frankly, some of the legislation from the Bush administration would clearly fall in that.
Well, I don't want to support. I would never support anything that was against the Constitution or the 10th Amendment. I've been actively working to help with the battle that we have here at the state level, that we're going to take on the federal government with the 10th Amendment Freedom Acts that are proposed in the current Virginia General Assembly. As far as areas that you would begin to cut, one of my favorite ones would be the czars, because I think the czars are totally unconstitutional. Another big area would be foreign aid. Davy Crockett dealt with that years ago when he told the Congress that the Congress has no right to give charity to individual members. They may give as much as their own money as they please, but they have no right to touch a dollar of the public money for that purpose. And if that was good enough for Davy Crockett, that's good enough for me. So I think we should cut there too. And just as Ron said, taking over public business, hiring CEOs, healthcare, cap and trade, all these things that we're dealing with the Obama administration are against our constitutional rights, and we have to go up there and stand and fight against that. There's no question about what's coming down the pike. It's socialistic, and we need to say no to it.
Yes, I would vote against legislation that violates the 10th Amendment. And for far too long, the 10th Amendment has been violated by our government on both sides, Republicans and Democrats. Republicans with No Child Left Behind, Democrats with Pelosi Care and cap and trade. We need to protect the sovereignty of the states, the Constitution, and the 10th Amendment. I am the only candidate that has signed a pledge to protect the 10th Amendment if I'm elected, and I would support all the other candidates signing it as well.
If I understood the question correctly, what you wanted to know is whether or not we would support restricting the Congress to the Constitution of the United States to be strict constitutions, and I would say absolutely, and that's what we should be doing for sure. Now, the second thing is what type of legislation could be brought into play in order to do that. We've had good suggestions here. Healthcare is certainly one of those. I think another one, and probably is the key to everything that we do almost anywhere, and that is to have a balanced budget. We need somebody in Washington who's willing to step up, cut spending, and have a balanced budget. And I think that's something that can be done. I've done it here in Albemarle County. We've balanced our budget every year that I've been on the Board of Supervisors. We've actually reduced spending by $30 million last year. And if you can do it here in Albemarle County, we can do it in the federal government. So that's another thing. The other thing that I'd like to mention, I think we ought to do away with, but don't believe is authorized under the Constitution, is the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education.
Here, here.